Imagine walking out your front door right now. But instead of just seeing concrete sidewalks or, asphalt roads or weeds growing in the cracks, you actively treat the ground beneath your feet as if it were a pregnant entity.
Oh, wow. That is quite the image.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't stomp. You wouldn't rush blindly to your car while staring at a screen. You would move with this uh, profound sense of care, hyper aware that you're stepping on a living, vulnerable system.
Yeah, you'd have to be completely present.
Exactly. And today, we're looking at a worldview that demands you do exactly that. Welcome to today's deep dive. We're pulling from a transcript of a YouTube video by the channel Quotes, and it's titled, "These Native American Proverbs Are Life-Changing."
And they really are.
They are. And our mission for this deep dive isn't to just, examine these sayings as nice historical poetry. We're going to treat them as an intensely practical toolkit for your daily life. Okay, let's unpack this, because to actually live by these proverbs requires a complete rewiring of how you see yourself, your community, and, well, your environment.
Yeah, it's a massive shift in perspective. And what's fascinating here is that this material, it forces you to start from the outside and work your way in.
Right.
Because we often think self-improvement starts entirely in our own heads, right? Like it's all internal. But these proverbs suggest that before you even begin to untangle your own psychology, you have to reconcile how you interact with the tangible, physical world around you.
Which is so relevant right now. The text is unapologetically blunt about our modern obsession with accumulation. There's this famous quote in the source material. It goes, "Only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish been caught, and the last stream poisoned, will we realize we cannot eat money."
It just completely strips away the illusion of the economy.
Totally.
I mean, we spend our days obsessing over numbers on a screen, right? Stock portfolios, bank balances, salaries. But this proverb forces a visceral reality check. It basically asks you to sit at a table with a stack of $100 bills and try to consume them for sustenance.
Good luck with that. I look at that through the lens of the hustle culture we're all swimming in. People are working themselves to the bone, staring at spreadsheets for 12 hours a day, completely disconnected from the physical world.
Yeah, just totally burned out.
Right. And it makes me wonder, is this just a literal warning about the environment, or is it a deeper metaphor about how we constantly confuse the symbol of value money with actual sustaining value?
That is exactly it.
Because we exhaust ourselves chasing the symbol, and in the process, we ignore or even destroy the very things that actually sustain us, like our health, our time in nature, and our peace of mind.
Yeah, and the brilliance of the text is that it doesn't separate the psychological from the physical. They're one continuous loop. When you read the line, "Walk lightly in the spring, Mother Earth is pregnant," it's giving you direct behavioral instruction.
Walk lightly.
Yeah, it's asking you to physically alter your pace. Moving lightly requires you to slow down. It requires you to pay attention to your surroundings rather than just, barreling through them to get to your next meeting.
And if you don't do that, like if you just keep barreling through, the text gives a terrifying diagnosis of what happens next. It says, when a man moves away from nature, his heart becomes hard.
And that is the mechanism of the damage. A hardened heart is essentially a loss of empathy.
Wow. Yeah.
When you surround yourself only with artificial things, concrete, screens, synthetic lighting, you start to view the world as a machine. And if the world is just a machine, then other people are just cogs.
So disconnecting from the natural world isn't just about, failing to recycle.
No, not at all. It's an active numbing of your own human spirit.
You lose that reverence. You forget the rule to take only what you need and leave the land as you found it. And if we carry that metaphor into our daily consumption, whether it's the sheer amount of plastic packaging we throw away from online shopping, or just our energy consumption, we are constantly leaving heavy footprints.
Yeah, very heavy.
So, if stomping heavily through the outside world hardens our internal emotional state, how do we begin to soften that? Because the text doesn't just leave us in the woods, it takes us directly into the human mind. And it paints a picture of a pretty chaotic internal battlefield.
It really does. It frames the human mind as a place of active daily conflict. It's not something you achieve peace in once and then, boom, you're done.
Right, you don't just check a box.
Exactly. It's a continuous practice of intentionality.
And the most vivid illustration of this is the story of the two wolves. The quote is, "There are two wolves fighting inside all of us. The first one is evil, the second one is good. Which wolf will win? The one you feed."
It's so iconic.
It is. And I hear that and I think about how easy it is to feed the wrong wolf in today's world. Like, if I spend 3 hours doom scrolling through outrage bait on social media, I'm just shoveling a buffet of anxiety and anger directly into that first wolf.
Oh, absolutely. The mechanism of feeding is where the actual work happens. You feed that wolf with your attention, your habits, your reactions. And the text leans heavily into how we use our words and our actions as the primary way we feed these internal forces.
Which brings up a line I just cannot stop thinking about.
Yeah.
It is better to have less thunder in the mouth and more lightning in the hand. Talk about a diagnosis of the internet age.
It is spot on.
Right. We have millions of people out there with endless thunder in their mouths. They perform outrage. They loudly signal their virtues. They argue endlessly in comment sections. But there is absolutely no lightning in their hand. No real-world action, no volunteering, no creating, no tangible help.
Because thunder is just noise. It's atmospheric displacement. It might be loud and, it might make people jump, but it doesn't illuminate the dark and it doesn't strike with precision.
The lightning does.
Exactly. Lightning is sudden, it is real, and it transforms whatever it touches. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the proverb is basically telling you to stop announcing your intentions and start executing them.
I'm stuck on something here, though. The source material seems to send some, mixed signals about how we communicate.
How so?
Well, on one hand, it actively champions silence. It says it does not require many words to speak the truth, and it throws this sharp warning at us. Listen, or your tongue will make you deaf.
Right.
So that paints silence as this ultimate virtue. But then, just a few lines down, it warns, beware of the man who does not talk and the dog that does not bark. So what are you supposed to do with that? Is silence the goal? Or is silence dangerous?
I see what you mean. It really comes down to the intention behind the silence. Silence used as a tool for listening to prevent your own ego, your tongue, from drowning out the world that is virtuous.
It makes room for the truth.
Exactly. It allows you to actually hear truth. But deceptive silence is entirely different. The dog that doesn't bark before it bites is hiding its intentions. It's brooding.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, when someone refuses to communicate because they are masking malice or, withholding crucial information, that silence isn't virtuous, it's a trap.
So we're aiming for a middle ground. We want to avoid empty thunder, but we also want to avoid deceptive silence.
Yes. And the text gives you the perfect biological metaphor for that middle ground. It says, there is nothing as eloquent as a rattlesnake's tail.
Oh man, that imagery is incredible.
Isn't it? Think about how a rattlesnake operates. It doesn't roar, it doesn't talk a big game, it just shakes its tail.
That's a little warning.
Right. That is a crystal clear nonverbal boundary. It communicates the absolute truth of the situation. If you step closer, there will be consequences. And it does it without resorting to unnecessary noise. It's the ultimate example of communicating with clarity and boundary setting.
Applying that to modern life is fascinating. Like, if you have a coworker who is constantly overstepping, you don't need to unleash thunder in your mouth and cause a massive dramatic scene in the office.
Yep.
And you shouldn't be the silent dog either, quietly seething until you suddenly bite their head off one day. You just need the eloquence of the rattlesnake's tail, a calm, firm, unmistakable boundary.
Yes. You provide a clear warning and then you stand your ground.
Well, if we can master that internal rattlesnake, the real test is what happens when another person inevitably steps on its tail. Because dealing with yourself is one thing, but dealing with the people around you, your neighbors, your community, your rivals, that requires a completely different set of tools.
It requires an exhausting, active form of empathy. The text doesn't let you off the hook by just telling you to, be nice. It demands serious cognitive labor.
The baseline expectation is pretty famous. Do not judge your neighbor until you walk 2 moons in his moccasins. We hear that and we just think, sure, put yourself in their shoes.
Right, it's a cliche now.
Exactly.
But the specific measurement of time, 2 moons, roughly 60 days, that is what strikes me. Empathy isn't a 5-minute thought experiment. It's an extended period of sitting with someone else's discomfort.
Because walking in someone's moccasins for 2 moons means you are inevitably going to get blisters in the exact same places they do.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about it like that. Yeah, you're going to feel the terrain exactly as they feel it. Only after you have sustained that shared experience do you earn the right to form a judgment.
And it gets even more intense when the text addresses our adversaries. It says, make my enemy brave and strong so that if defeated, I will not be ashamed. I have to admit, I love this.
It's powerful.
It's almost like, and stay with me here, it's like playing a video game on the hardest difficulty setting.
Okay, I follow.
If you set the game to easy and the enemies barely fight back, beating the boss feels hollow. Like, who cares? You want the enemy to be tough so that your victory actually means something. But applying that to real life, where the stakes are our careers or our safety, is incredibly counterintuitive.
It completely inverts the standard human reaction. When we face an adversary, a competitor in business, a rival, an opposing viewpoint, our instinct is to hope they are weak, stupid, or incompetent so that our lives can be easier.
Right, we want the easy win.
But the Proverbs explicitly state, the weakness of the enemy makes our strength. Meaning, if your strength only exists because your opponent was weak, you aren't actually strong. By wishing for a brave and strong enemy, you are forcing yourself to rise to a higher standard of honor.
You are refusing to take the coward's way out. Because as it says, a brave man dies but once, a coward many times. You die a little bit inside every time you shrink from a challenge or take an unearned victory.
And that standard of shared strength, it extends into how we build our communities, too. We cannot leave people behind.
Right, there's this striking quote, "The bird who is eaten cannot fly with the bird that is hungry." Think about your own workplace or your own friend group. If you're coming to a project full of energy, well-rested, and emotionally secure, you're the fed bird.
Yeah.
But your colleague is dealing with a personal crisis, financial stress, and is completely drained. You literally cannot fly in the same direction or at the same speed that day. Does this proverb, in your view, strictly apply to physical resources like food, or does it apply to emotional bandwidth?
I think it's the intersection of both. A community cannot function, it cannot fly, if there is a massive disparity in basic reality.
Makes sense.
The person who is full simply cannot comprehend the desperate, immediate gravity of the person who is starving. You cannot demand high-level flight from someone who is just trying to survive on the ground.
And the source material takes a very hard look at that struggle for survival. It describes poverty with brutal honesty. It says, poverty is a noose that strangles humility and breeds disrespect for God and man. It doesn't romanticize the struggle at all. It calls it a noose.
It acknowledges the psychological trauma of deprivation. This raises an important question about morality in tough times. When you are financially suffocating, it is incredibly difficult to maintain humility or respect for systems that seem to be failing you. The text sees that pain clearly.
But it refuses to let that pain become an excuse for bad character, right? Because right alongside that, it declares it is less of a problem to be poor than to be dishonest. It's telling you that your circumstances might be agonizing, they might be a noose around your neck, but your integrity is still your own responsibility.
It's a refusal to accept determinism. Just because your situation is difficult doesn't mean you have a free pass to abandon your morals. The text uses an agricultural metaphor here. It says, not every sweet root gives birth to sweet grass.
Meaning?
You might have good intentions or come from a good place, but if you don't actively cultivate virtue through your actions, the outcome will still be bitter.
It demands action over passive intention every single time. It is no longer good enough to cry peace. We must act peace, and live in peace. We're back to needing lightning in the hand. Crying for peace is just thunder in the mouth.
And acting peace requires immense sophistication. It is not about being a pushover.
I'm so glad you brought that up because there is this fantastic line about negotiation and conflict. If a man is as wise as a serpent, he can afford to be as harmless as a dove.
Yes. You don't act peacefully out of naivety. You act peacefully from a position of profound capability.
Right.
You understand the serpent's ways. You know how betrayal happens. You know where the psychological pressure points are. You know how to strike, if necessary. But because you hold that deep understanding, you have the luxury and the power to actually choose the dove.
You have the capacity for immense harm, but you consciously choose harmlessness. That is such a powerful framework for navigating society.
So we've figured out our relationship with the earth, we've wrestled with our internal wolves, and we've navigated the complex web of our neighbors and enemies.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. But zooming out from our daily conflicts, the final section of our deep dive looks at the overarching timeline of a human life. It asks how we accumulate wisdom over decades, and how we handle the inevitable end of that timeline.
And to do that, the text forces us to untangle two concepts we usually treat as synonyms, knowledge and wisdom. The quote is, "Seek wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is of the past, wisdom is of the future." Now, I really want to unpack the mechanics of that. Why is knowledge relegated to the past? Isn't wisdom entirely constructed from the things we've learned in the past?
It's a subtle but crucial difference. Knowledge is the accumulation of static data. It's the facts, the history, the record of what has already happened.
Okay.
So it is inherently backward-looking. You can memorize an entire encyclopedia possessing immense knowledge and still have absolutely no idea how to survive a crisis tomorrow.
Ah, I see.
Wisdom is the dynamic application of those facts to navigate what will happen. Knowledge is remembering that a specific fire burned your hand yesterday. Wisdom is knowing how to build a fire tomorrow that keeps your family warm without burning the house down.
Wow, that perfectly explained it. So wisdom is the forward-facing engine. And it's not something you can just aggressively study in a library. The source says wisdom comes only when you stop looking for it and start living the life the Creator intended for you.
Yeah.
You have to get out of the books and get your hands dirty.
You have to experience the friction of reality. You have to endure the passage of time, which is exactly why the text advises you to cherish youth but trust old age.
And while you're moving through that time, you have to be fiercely protective of your present moment. It says, don't let yesterday use up too much of today.
That is a great one.
That is a quote I literally need taped to my bathroom mirror. We spend so much energy dragging our past regrets into our current morning, and it just drains our capacity to act.
It really does. And that presence of mind, it extends to how you interact with the people closest to you. The Proverbs ask us to fundamentally reconsider the concept of ownership, especially when it comes to family.
Remember that your children are not your own, but are lent to you by the Creator. That changes everything about parenting.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
It's like checking out a rare, priceless manuscript from an archive. You don't own that book. You can't hoard it forever. You just have this terrifying, immense privilege of caring for it, reading it, and protecting it for a very short window of time before it has to go back out into the world.
It removes the ego from the equation. Your children aren't your property, and they aren't monuments to your own legacy. They are independent entities you are tasked with guiding. And part of that guidance is teaching them how to seek truth.
Which connects to a brilliant, quiet piece of advice in the transcript. Ask questions from your heart, and you will be answered from the heart.
I love that one.
Think about how often we ask questions just to win an argument or to sound smart in a meeting. We ask from our ego. And so we get defensive, ego-driven answers in return. But when you ask a question from a place of genuine, vulnerable curiosity, from the heart, the armor drops.
The other person feels it.
Exactly. They feel that shift, and they respond with matching authenticity.
It changes the entire frequency of the conversation.
Right.
And we need those authentic connections because, as the text continually reminds us, our time to make them is astonishingly short. The Proverbs ask, what is life? And the answers they provide are incredibly humbling.
It is a flash of a firefly in the night. It is a breath of a buffalo in the wintertime. It is as the little shadow that runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. Honestly, that is just breathtaking.
It is pure poetry.
In our modern lives, we spend so much time puffing out our chests, trying to make ourselves feel huge and permanently important. And this worldview just gently taps you on the shoulder and says, no, you are a breath in the wintertime. You are a shadow.
It forces us to confront our own brevity. It says our pleasures are shallow, our sorrows are deep. It acknowledges that existence is heavy, but it's fleeting. But that brevity isn't meant to induce despair. It's meant to reorient what you prioritize. Because while the physical body is temporary, the text completely redefines what death actually is.
There is no death, only a change of worlds.
A transition, not an end. And it anchors that transition in the community you leave behind. They are not dead who live in the hearts they leave behind.
Which gives us the ultimate metric for a successful life. When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice.
What a standard to live by.
I mean, you arrive in a state of distress while everyone else is happy you're here. Your job is to live with such impact, such lightning in your hand, and empathy for the hungry bird, that when you leave, you are at peace. And it is the world that feels the loss.
It asks us to ensure that our internal lives, our character, our emotional footprint, the wisdom we apply to the future are what echo forward. Not the bank accounts, not the material wealth that we were warned we couldn't eat anyway.
Which brings this entire journey full circle. We started by walking lightly on a pregnant earth, careful not to leave scars. We moved inward to starve our evil wolf and feed the good one. We looked at setting boundaries like a rattlesnake, extending empathy for 2 moons, and making our enemies brave. And finally, We accepted that we are nothing but the flash of a firefly in the night. So what does this all mean? Bringing all these sources together, what does this actually mean for you, the listener, as you navigate your day-to-day?
I think it means we might have our modern ambitions completely backward. We spend our entire lives trying to accumulate physical permanence. We want concrete monuments, sprawling properties, massive portfolios, unyielding opinions, things we can hold on to and force upon the physical world forever.
We want to leave a mark.
Exactly. But these proverbs suggest that the ultimate goal is exactly the opposite.
We are supposed to leave the land as we found it, to be a shadow that loses itself in the sunset.
The profound wisdom here is that we should strive to be entirely temporary and harmless in the physical world. We should leave no permanent scars on the earth and no physical devastation in our wake. We should only seek permanence in the emotional world to live on in the hearts of the people we helped, the people we listened to, and the community we nurtured.
It really reframes everything.
It does. It leaves us with a critical question to carry forward, What if your true legacy is measured not by the massive, permanent monuments you build, but by the physical marks you actively choose not to leave behind?